A man raced at nearly 200 miles per hour while his lungs were filling with infection. He didn't tap out. He didn't call his team and say he needed a week. He climbed into a car, strapped himself in, and drove because that is who he was. Kyle Busch is gone. And the way he died has just exposed something about sports media that we can no longer ignore. Kyle Busch, the most winning driver in NASCAR history, passed away at just 41 years old. The cause, sepsis, triggered by bacterial pneumonia. But here's the part that stops you cold. He had symptoms for days, possibly weeks. And he raced anyway. He competed at Watkins Glen. He won a Truck Series race at Dover. He ran the All-Star race. He was still in a Chevy simulator just one day before he became unresponsive. He died the next day. Meanwhile, ESPN personality Stephen A. Smith had gone on air not long before and declared with total confidence that NASCAR drivers are not athletes. His exact reasoning? You can drive a car at 75 years old. The timing couldn't be more damning, and the ignorance couldn't be more complete. Stephen A. Smith's take on NASCAR is not new. He's dismissed the sport for years. But those comments usually bounce off the NASCAR world and disappear. This time they landed at the worst possible moment, right as the community was mourning one of its legends. The NASCAR culture has always operated by a different code than other professional sports. These drivers do not take load management days. They do not sit out because of a nagging hamstring. Kyle Busch himself came back from a broken leg and a broken ankle at Daytona in 2015 and won the Cup Championship that same year. Richard Petty raced with a broken neck. Ricky Rudd taped his own eyelids open after a crash so he could see enough to qualify. Dale Earnhardt climbed into a car with a dislocated sternum and a broken collarbone. And a week after Earnhardt died at Daytona, his fellow drivers showed up at Rockingham and raced, including his own son. That is the world Kyle Busch belonged to. And that context makes Stephen A.'s dismissal feel less like a hot take and more like a failure to understand what toughness actually looks like. Let's talk about what driving a NASCAR stock car at competitive speed actually demands from the human body. Because if you think this is just turning a wheel, you're not paying attention. Former champion Kevin Harvick once wore a calorie tracking monitor during race events. One race logged over 3,200 calories burned. The company thought the device had malfunctioned. The following week, he burned 2,400. When they compare his data against other elite athletes, the only group that came close were marathon runners. The temperature inside a stock car can exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Drivers lose 10 to 15 pounds of water weight during a race. Their heart rates stay elevated for hours. They absorb constant G-forces while processing information at speeds where a split-second lapse doesn't mean a fumble. It can mean a funeral, and they do all that in traffic. Surrounded by 39 other 3,500-pound machines moving at 190 miles per hour, inches apart, for 3 hours straight. Now layer in what Kyle Busch was dealing with. He wasn't fighting nerves or fatigue. He was fighting an infection that was quietly overwhelming his body. His lungs were already compromised. His immune system was losing a war he may not have fully understood was happening, and he still chose to compete. That's not recklessness. That is the full definition of an athlete who sees competition as identity, not obligation. Stephen A. Smith has built a career on passion for sport, but passion doesn't equal understanding. His comments reveal a blind spot that is common among analysts who have never had to assess risk beyond stepping onto a basketball court. Driver Ryan Preece put it plainly when he responded to Smith's take. He invited him to go tumbling 13 times in a crash, show up with black eyes the following week, and then tell everyone it isn't a sport. That is not a taunt. That is a reality check. The NASCAR community is not shy, and the response to Smith's comments, intensified by Busch's death, has been exactly what you would expect from a fan base that has watched people they love not come home from the racetrack. Drivers spoke out. Former champions weighed in with data. Casual fans who might never have engaged with the debate before suddenly had a reason to care, because Kyle Busch wasn't just a statistic. He was someone who gave everything to this sport and paid the ultimate price doing so. On the other side, some will defend Smith on the grounds that he is an entertainer, that his job is provocation, that nobody should take sports debate television as gospel. That argument has its place. But there's a line between provocative and insulting, and calling a dead man's life's work just driving a car crosses it. The grief here is real, and it has sharpened the frustration with that dismissal into something much harder to shake off. The NASCAR community is not shy, and the response to Smith's comments, intensified by Busch's death, has been exactly what you would expect from a fan base that has watched people they love not come home from the racetrack. Drivers spoke out. Former champions weighed in with data. Casual fans who might never have engaged with the debate before suddenly had a reason to care, because Kyle Busch wasn't just a statistic. He was someone who gave everything to this sport and paid the ultimate price doing so. On the other side, some will defend Smith on the grounds that he is an entertainer, that his job is provocation, that nobody should take sports debate television as gospel. That argument has its place. But there is a line between provocative and insulting, and calling a dead man's life's work just driving a car crosses it. The grief here is real, and it has sharpened the frustration with that dismissal into something much harder to shake off. This story fades in 2 weeks. The debate dies down. The same dismissive takes surface again the next time NASCAR touches the news cycle. Nothing changes in how the sport is covered, and the drivers continue to be undervalued by the louder corners of sports media until the next tragedy forces the conversation open again. Kyle Busch raced while his body was failing him. He didn't know the full danger. Or maybe, in the way that racers think, he knew the risk and accepted it, because stopping simply wasn't who he was. That is athleticism, that is competition. Call it whatever you want, but do not call it just driving. So here is the question I want you to answer in the comments. Is this simply a failure of understanding from Stephen A. Smith? Or is it a symptom of how mainstream sports media has always looked down on NASCAR? Drop your take below. And if this kind of honest, in-depth sports conversation is what you're looking for, the subscribe button is right there. We'll see you in the next one.